all, myself Dr. Megha, and in this session we will be discussing about the concept of defamation as a tort. Let's take some definitions of defamation, and as per Black Law's dictionary, defamation is defined as offense that is injuring a person's character, fame or reputation by false and malicious statement. Then according to Winfield, defamation is the publication of the statement which tends to lower down a person's estimation of right thinking members of the society, which tends to make them shun or avoid that person. And as per Salmond, it can be defined as lies in the publication of a false and defamatory statement about another person without lawful justification. So, in very general, defamation is any kind of statement that is made by a person in regard to somebody else, which tends to lower down that person's estimation, reputation in the eyes of public at large, and that too without lawful justification. As per Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, because defamation is also a crime, so that is also defined under Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita as per section 356. Previously, it was given in IPC section 499, and as per this section, defamation is defined as whoever by words either spoken or intended to be read, or by signs or by visible representation, makes or publishes any imputation concerning any person intending to harm or knowing or having reason to believe that such imputation will harm the reputation of such person is said, except in the case hereinafter accepted, to defame that person. So, as per Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, it is very much elaborately defined that whenever anything is said or written by person which he intends that it will be read by any other person, then he makes any sign or any visible representation that will be seen by public at large, or make any publication, any imputation regarding any person with the intention that it will cause harm to that person's reputation. And there are few exceptions that is also given under section 356. If that imputation is not falling within that ambit, that will amount to defamation. These are few essentials of defamation that first of all make a person liable for defamation. The statement should be made. That statement can be by words, either spoken or written. It may be by signs or by visible representation. So, if A is asked who stole B's diamond ring, without saying anything he is pointing towards C, intending to cause everybody to believe that C stole diamond ring. This is also the case of defamation. Then statement must refer to the plaintiff. If it is a general statement and nobody is getting harmed by that statement, that cannot be termed as defamation. So, for defamation, the statement must refer to the plaintiff. It may be express or implied. The person who is referred to in the defamatory statement can be living or dead. So, if any dead person is being harmed, his reputation is being harmed, that will also amount to defamation if his family is getting affected by it. But this suit of defamation on behalf of a dead person can be filed only if the person filing the suit has an interest. If that person is not having any locus standi in that, then he cannot file a suit for defamation. There is a case of Delhi High Court, that is the case of Harsh Mehriratta versus Maharaja Singh, in which Delhi High Court said that an action for defamation was maintainable only by the person who was defamed and not by his friends or relatives. So, that person must be having interest in the subject matter of the suit, otherwise he is not entitled to claim any kind of compensation. Then third essential is the statement must be defamatory. So, statement should be there, statement should refer to the plaintiff, and for making him liable for defamation, the statement must be defamatory, which tends to lower down the reputation of the person that is concerned in that situation. In this case, the right thinking section of society is used to determine whether a statement is defamatory or not. intention to defame is not a valid defense. So, if a person is saying that I was not having intention to defame, but anyhow that person's reputation got damaged, still that would be a case of defamation. In the famous case of actress Katie Holmes, a magazine claimed that she was a drug addict. As it was contrary to her image and was also a false allegation, she subsequently filed a defamation suit. Then fourth essential is that statement should be false. It is not enough in itself that defamatory statement is made and it is pointing towards the plaintiff. If it is true statement, then there will be no case of defamation. So, that is another essential, that statement that is made defamatory, that should be a false statement just to lower down the reputation of that person. The next one is the statement should not be privileged. There are two types of privileges, absolute privilege and qualified privilege. So, if that statement is falling within any kind of privilege, that cannot amount to defamation. For example, no action lies for defamatory statements even though the statement is false or made maliciously. For example, parliamentary privileges, judicial proceedings and state communication. So, if anything is said by the ministers during the parliamentary proceedings, if anything is said during the judicial proceeding, that will not amount to defamation, even if it is made with a false intention or maliciously. Then second one is qualified privilege. In this case, it should not be made with malice. If malified intention is there just to lower down the reputation of the person, that can amount to defamation. Then the most essential thing is the statement must be published. If a person has written something in his diary, in his private book that is not readable by somebody else, that cannot amount to defamation. So, statement should be communicated to a third party. Unless and until there is a communication of the statement to a third party, it cannot amount to defamation. So, any statement that is written in personal diary or sent as a personal message, that will not amount to defamation. But if sender likely is to know that it will be easily accessible by third person, then it may amount to defamation. There is a very famous case, Ram Jethmalani versus Subramaniam Swamy. Inquiry commission was set up for examining the facts and circumstances relating to assassination of late Shri Rajiv Gandhi. The defendant at a press conference alleged that then Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu had prior information that Lete Cadre would make an assassination bid on the life of Rajiv Gandhi. The plaintiff was engaged as a senior counsel to the CM of Tamil Nadu. In discharge of his professional duties, the plaintiff cross-examined the defendant. During the proceeding, the defendant in the written conclusive submission alleged that plaintiff had been receiving money from Lete, a banned organization. That statement by defendant was held defamatory. Here we use the word the innuendo. Innuendo is something where the accusation is not made directly by calling somebody's name, but it is an indirect accusation. So, sometimes the statement may be prima facie innocent, but because of some latent or secondary meaning, it may be considered as defamatory. So, for example, the statement that a lady has given birth to a child, if we take only this statement, this looks very innocent because it is a natural thing, but it will be considered as defamatory when the lady is unmarried. So, innuendo is also a form of defamation. Now, let us take major forms of defamation: libel and slander. Libel is something that is published. So, if when someone publishes in the newspaper that a false statement, that a person is a thief, which is a false statement, that will be considered as libel. So, which is in permanent form, that will be considered as libel, but which is not in permanent form, which is not published form, that will be considered as slander. So, action or crime of making a false spoken statement that is damaging a person's reputation, that will amount to slender. These are few differences between libel and slander. So, libel, as I said, that it is in written form, published thing is named as libel, and verbally communicated thing is known as slander. Libel is permanent, slender is non-permanent, and libel is more aggravated form of defamation than the slender, because it is very easy to prove libel in comparison to that of slender. Now, let us take some defenses that are available against defamation. First of all, justification by truth. As we discussed while we were discussing the definitions, every statement that is made with the intention of lowering down the reputation of a person, that too should be without justification of truth. If there is lawful justification for making that statement, that cannot be termed as defamation. So, the first defense that is available with the defendant is justification of the truth. Truth is an absolute defense. If the statement is made with not a malified intention, if the person who is making the statement believes it to be true, this is a complete defense. But here the burden of proof to prove that whatever he is saying is true is on him. So, ultimately the burden of proof is on the defendant. Then second defense is fair comment. So, for this defense there must be three essentials present. The comment must be an expression of opinion rather than assertion of fact. So, if I am making certain opinion regarding certain thing, that no, this is not right, this is not correct. So, this is just my fair comment. I am not asserting that it can't be correct at all. So, if a person is making a fair comment, if that person is giving his opinion about that certain thing, certain behavior, that will not be considered as defamation. Then this comment must be fair without any kind of malified intention, and the matter on which this comment is being made, that must be of public interest. So, again a comment cannot be made on the private affairs, that can amount to defamation. If it is made on the public affairs, public interest, then it can be a complete defense for the defendant. Then the next defense is truth for public good. So, if a statement is made and that is true concerning any person and it is for the public good, then again that will not amount to defamation. That such imputation must be published and such statement should not be fall within the definition that is given under section 499 of IPC and section 356 of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. So, what is public good? If I know about a company that it's producing certain goods which are not for public welfare, and if I'm making certain statement that don't purchase any kind of good from this company because this company is making false products, and I am giving true statement, and I can prove my statement with the help of certain evidences, then the statement is considered in the public good, and this will not be considered as a defamation. Then the next defense is fair criticism of public servants. This exemption does not defend a person from his claims but his beliefs. In the interest of the public, every citizen of the country has a legal right to make accurate and fair claims about public servants. Who are public servants? There are classes of persons who are considered as public servant, that is mentioned under IPC as well as in BNS. The servants, the persons who are doing the public duties, they are considered as public servant and they are for us only. And if public is criticizing them for their work, whatever they are doing, that will be considered as fair criticism but not defamation. But it must be ensured that such comment is not made with any kind of malified intention, but with that should be backed by truth. The next one is fair comment on public conduct of public men other than public servants. Public servants we had already discussed in previous defense. If any fair comment is being made on any public conduct of public man, that will not amount to defamation. So, offence of defamation will not be created by fair, truthful and accurate criticism of public servants, and the test of fair comment will actually succeed in this situation, that comment is being made, that is being made on the public affairs, and that too without any kind of maleficent intention. The next defense is reports of proceedings of the Court of Justice. So, judicial trials in India are of public interest. Anything that is made in the public interest and that is backed by the truth, that will not be considered as defamation. So, accurate recording of such proceedings must also be made and be exempted from the purview of defamation. If any statement is made by a judicial officer, if any statement is made by the prosecutors over there, lawyers, advocates, that cannot amount to defamation while they are doing that during the court proceedings. And if that proceeding got published, that will not amount to defamation. So, the author of the report must ensure that all the information provided is precise and is free from malefied, deceptive and inaccurate data. We are immuning the judicial proceedings from the purview of defamation, but it is not an absolute immunity. Here the author of the report, who is publishing the report of the judicial proceedings, he has to assure that it is free from any kind of malefied intention, any kind of deception, and further he is not providing any kind of inaccurate data. If that is there, which is not there in the judicial proceedings, then that may amount to defamation and he cannot avail the defense of reports of proceedings of the Court of Justice. Then seventh is comment on cases. In this, protection is provided to case comments of the decision that have been adjudicated upon confidently. So, if there is a case and I am not satisfied with the judgment, and if I am giving my own analysis, critical analysis on that particular judgment, here I am not defaming anybody. This is my opinion regarding the evidences placed, regarding the proceeding that is done, that will be considered as fair comment on cases and that will not amount to defamation. Then next one is literary criticism. This is the last defense for defamation. Society in general must have right to openly criticize literary work. It may be any book, it may be any cinema, it may be any play. If we are offering anything for the public review, that can be criticized by our society. But for this literary criticism, certain criteria needs to be fulfilled. First one is, there need to be an invitation by the author for such criticism by the public. For example, if a person is writing a book for his own use and he is not making it public, that cannot amount to he is not offering his book for the literary criticism. If that person is offering his book for the public review, that means he is inviting the criticism too. So, here the society can criticize that literary work. Then it is not necessary, however, to distribute the same for review. The criticism must be pertinent to the standard of the performance and not as such whether the person has the ability to do the same or not. And the statement of imputation must be made in good faith. So, these are the few criteria for literary criticism. First of all, that person has made that work available for the criticism, he has invited for that review. The criticism whatsoever is being made by the society, that must be according to the performance. if we are making certain criteria that the performance should be up to that mark, but that performer is very newcomer, so the criticism can go to the extent of defamation. So, the criticism must be at par to the standard of performance, and again the statement of imputation must be made in good faith. The criticism must be fair. Again, the all essentials of fair comment are applicable in this situation. If that is not made in good faith, the statement can amount to defamation. So, if I conclude this session, defamation, we have discussed defamation in the as per the rule of civil law, but defamation is also a crime. A person can also ask for the punishment if his reputation is being damaged by somebody else, as I mentioned section 356 of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. So, defamation is any kind of statement that is made by a person for defaming, for harming the reputation of somebody else, and that too without the justification, lawful justification. Few essentials are there that we discussed. That statement should be there, statement must be made in reference to the plaintiff, and it should be defamatory, and that too without the lawful justifications. If this is there, then any statement that is made by a person can fall within the purview of defamation, but he is also having certain defenses, that he may say that he has made fair comment, he has made comment in regard to public servant, he has made fair comments, he has made comments regarding the literary work. So, this is all about the defamation for this session. Thank you.